Guys, I couldn't be any more excited today to present to you something that I've been waiting to get for basically since I've heard of it. It was never released in North America, and it is the Hori Super Game Boy Commander Controller. It looks like a Game Boy, it feels like a Game Boy, it has that roughness to it. The buttons have the same feel as an OG Game Boy. And this one was never used, guys. New in box. Insane. Super excited to have it. And this thing has exclusive features. We'll talk about first kind of what's going on here. We've got a mute button. We've got your speed controls. You can actually control the speed of your game and slow it down to like 25%, I think 50% speed, and then of course 100% speed. You can change your color toggle if you've got two colors set in your palette, and you can also bring up your menu. So we're going to talk about a little bit what this does, show it off a little bit, and it also has, one thing I will mention, a Super Game Boy toggle and Super Famicom toggle if you want to play your games like for your Super Famicom used as controller. It doesn't have an LNR. It's got a really cool rough back to it. It feels just like a Game Boy. It's insane. It's got that roughness. I can't quite explain it. Almost feels like you're holding on to sandpaper. It's really nice. So let's talk about a little bit about what it's going to do. I'm going to demonstrate. So if I want to mute my game, all I do is press mute. Just like that. You've muted your Super Game Boy, which you cannot do in any other way. So it's unique to this. You can also change your speed, which is also unique to this controller. You can't do it any other way. So here we are. We're in our slowest speed here. Look at that. Super slow. And we can actually hit that one more time. And it'll go to half speed, which is even cooler. I freaking love that. And then we can switch it back to regular. One thing I will say, after using this controller just now, if you're playing the game, you can't hit some of these special functions. You need to stop pressing any other buttons in order to do them. So just one thing I thought I'd mention. We can bring up our window control here, and we can change our border if we want to change our border to the dolphins, which is really friggin' sweet. And then we got to talk about basically, okay, how does it feel? It feels really weighty in the hand. It feels really sturdy. It's really well made for something that old that's never been opened. It feels like I'm holding a Game Boy. The overall comfort of it, I would say it's a very comfortable controller. The D-pad feels very responsive, and nothing feels mushy on it. So that's really cool. And another thing that I really enjoy about this right off the get-go is the fact that it feels right in the hand. It doesn't feel like, say, an NES controller. I know it's kind of shaped similar. I actually got an NES controller here. But if you look at it compared to an NES controller, that kind of gives you a sense of scale. It's a bit bigger than that. And if I were to look at it against a Super Famicom controller, I'll bring one of those out too, so we can show you. It's about the same size. I think if you look at it, it's almost identical in its profile. Of course, it's not as, curved on the bottom, but it feels great. I am very impressed by this, and the fact that it has those extra functions is just so sweet. I'm a huge Super Game Boy fan, as you can tell. And yeah, to have this complete in box really makes me happy. I'm super excited to be able to play games this way. This is how I'll be playing them from now on. I will not be using Super Nintendo controller on Super Game Boy at all. So I'm playing with the Super Game Boy 2 right now, guys, which in the last video I talked about. And the big difference with the Super Game Boy 2, of course, is that it has a link port, and it also has correct clock rate. Because it has crystal oscillator, so it runs at the Game Boy clock rate instead of the SNES clock rate, which is a little bit too fast. So this guy runs a little bit too fast and has tinny noise. We talked about it in the last video. I'll pin that up here so you guys can check it out. But yeah, guys, overall, this controller is a 10 out of 10. Feels great, brand new. If you can grab one off eBay, go for it. If you're a huge Game Boy fan and Super Game Boy fan. We'll see you next time here at Koi Fish Gaming, guys. Bye now.